something that should be done before you even start your boot camp. This is how you stand out. I wish I did this when I was in a UX boot camp, but I had no one to tell me about it. But I wish as someone who completed a UX bootcamp, I completely understand the fear, the nerves, the excitement, and it takes a lot of courage to set off on this journey. So if you decided to enroll in a UX bootcamp this upcoming year, OMG, congratulations, because that is a huge step, and I'm so excited for everything that's about to happen. Like, how do I make the best of my time and money spent while enrolled in a boot camp? Or even things like, if it's not teaching me everything that I need to know, what else should I be doing in order to get a UX design job? So I'm here today in this video to give you my best advice when it comes to UX boot camps, so you don't have to go another sleepless night wondering, what's gonna happen next? Am I making the most out of my boot camp? This piece of advice is often overlooked, and it's something that should be done before you even start your boot camp, sooner rather than later. Because take it from me who made this mistake, I met my mentor in UX bootcamp for the first time, and I was like, okay, something's off, but I don't know what it is. You might not have taken the time to truly figure out what mentor is best for you, because maybe, like me, you've never had one. And that's totally fair. But if you're spending loads and loads of cash on this program, I think it would be a very solid idea to figure out if you're good with someone like a Mr. Miyagi or a Yoda. So my advice here is to take the time to write out everything that you look for in a good mentor. And I typically like to think of like previous bosses or previous teachers that really helped me succeed. Let's say you had a previous boss and his name was Professor Albus Dumbledore. So if you think about Professor Dumbledore and Harry's relationship, Dumbledore always kept an eye on Harry. But also at the same time, he challenged Harry and he aided him in a lot of problem-solving skills. Meaning he didn't give him like the full answers to everything, he always left a little bit of the puzzle so Harry could actually learn by doing. Dumbledore also gave guidance when asked, and he had some seriously wise-ass life lessons, even outside of wizardry, like lessons about love and friendship.
Pity the living, and above all those who live without love.
And he was just so kind and approachable, like no question was too dumb for him. R.I.P. Dumbledore. So now let's take that same exact framework and apply it IRL to our bootcamp mentor. Let's say you get on your first one-on-one Zoom call with your mentor, and you soon realize that they're kind of distracted and they're texting someone during the one-on-one, they're maybe even making a phone call. Yeah, totally, I'm just mentoring someone right now on a Zoom call. They're just very distracted. And so then you think, WWDD. What would Dumbledore do? Dumbledore! And we all know Dumbledore wouldn't do this. So I immediately check that off my list. But then you think, you know what? I'm gonna give this mentor another chance. Maybe, give them the benefit of the doubt. They had a bad week. Like, I'm very empathetic. I want to give this another chance. And you show them designs and they kind of give a passive yes or no, not really much guidance and not really much action. So that also checks them off the list. So then by Dumbledore's standards, that just doesn't really match up. And honestly, that's already enough for me to want to switch bootcamp mentors. And I know this sounds so harsh, and I am not blaming any specific person or program or any of that, because this is purely an example. We have to remember, this is thousands and thousands of dollars, so this program is for you. If you don't think this mentor is going to get you where you want to go and achieve the goals that you want to achieve in this bootcamp, then you gotta take control and communicate and switch mentors ASAP. I really wanted to push myself when I was in this bootcamp, so I was looking for a mentor who was going to push me to my limits. I was looking for an experienced mentor who would challenge me constantly and not just approve my designs just because they wanted to get by. I wanted a designer who would literally put my designs under a microscope and critique it to filth. And that's what I was looking for, more of that like tough love, but also supportive and empathetic and compassionate. And I know it's like people aren't perfect, but I think you really have to figure out how much you are willing to put into this program. Understand that these mentors play a huge part in your experience. And it's ultimately up to you to figure out your learning style and communicate that really clearly with your first mentor to make sure that you're a good match. This advice is something that I wish I knew so badly before I started bootcamp, because I was so focused on what they do teach you in bootcamp that I totally lost sight of the things that they don't teach you in bootcamp. So if you've never followed my channel before, I'm very honest. I have rants sometimes and I just get very opinionated about the UX industry. And this is one of my gripes when it comes to UX bootcamps. They just teach you UX basics, which is only like 60% of the job. Maybe my percentage is a little bit off, but basically what I'm trying to say is what they teach you in bootcamp is not the entire job description of being a UX designer. When interviewing for UX design positions, most of the questions that are asked has nothing to do with whether or not you know how to create a secondary or tertiary button or show me how to wireframe. They are much more scenario based. Like, how do you work well with a product manager? How do you do handoffs with engineers? Tell me about a time you had pushback and how did you resolve it? So I get frustrated because I wish I did this when I was in a UX bootcamp, but I had no one to tell me about it. But I wish I studied UX interview questions while I was enrolled in the UX bootcamp. I'm telling you, I feel like this is a massive game changer. Because here's the thing, once UX bootcamp students come out of bootcamp, they do two things. So the first one is kind of omitting the truth, like not really being honest that the case studies on their portfolios aren't real, and also pumping up the fact that they have a lot more UX experience than they really do, and basically trying to fool the hiring manager and being sneaky little chickens when, spoiler alert, they're not. And the second one that I see is really leveraging the crap out of their past experience and applying it to UX interview questions. Now, this latter one is by far my top choice. Most of the UX interns or junior UX designers that I've been a part of the hiring process that we actually hired applied their current strengths to UX. So rather than trying to convince people that they had a lot of UX strengths, they instead took the strengths that they already had and applied it to how they would work well with stakeholders in a UX environment. But basically getting a heads up and understanding the types of UX interview questions you're going to get asked, and also utilizing a mentor while you have one to get the help in answering them is just, this is how you stand out. If you do need a launch pad in terms of what type of interview questions are typically asked in a UX interview process, I do have a study guide in my link below that has a list of a ton of questions that I've seen throughout my years of interviewing with a bunch of different tech companies. And what's great about this is you could take this study guide and pick and pull any types of questions that you're kind of stuck on and use your mentor and ask them how to answer them correctly depending on the situation that you have. Because honestly, once you're done with bootcamp and you don't have a mentor anymore and now it's time to really study up these interview questions, it's going to be really, really hard. At least for the bootcamp that I was in, which was Design Lab, what was awesome about the program is they did have a career coaching section. And so this would be a perfect time to bring this study guide to your mentor and really work with them to understand how to best leverage your current strengths and answer these questions. This last one also has to do with what they don't teach you in boot camps, and I touched on it a little bit, but man, I wish I knew this. UX bootcamps do not teach you how to manage interpersonal relationships when working as a UX designer. And I will tell you why this is so important. Because like I said, your job as a UX designer, maybe half of the battle really is those basics like wireframing, prototypes, Figma, learning all the tools. But the other half really is about almost like the politics of being a UX designer and working with so many different types of people with so many different types of goals, while also balancing the user and the business. I'm not blaming the boot camps in any way because they can only do so much. I don't expect them to simulate me working with a real product manager or a real engineer or a real marketer and legal and copywriters, content designers, UX researchers, you name it. I mean, if there was one, I would say that is like the GOAT of UX boot camps, but I don't think that exists, and if it did, I bet it costs a pretty penny. So if you feel like you're not really understanding what it's like to work with other roles as a UX designer, I highly suggest you find this information elsewhere. I've definitely mentioned this in other videos before, and so I have some videos I'll link in the description that will help you understand it much more in detail. And the bootcamp that I was in did provide like a tiny little section about what each of these roles do and a job description, but honestly, at least for me, a job description is just not enough for me to fully understand what that working relationship is like. So what I wish I did is I wish I went on LinkedIn or asked some friends and family if they knew of any project managers or engineers, anyone that typically works with UX designers, and messaged them or reached out and asked them questions like, what do you love about working with UX designers? What do you look for in a good UX designer? My gosh, if I did that, I would have saved myself such a headache after graduating bootcamp. And this plays a very vital role when it comes to defending your designs and also articulating your decisions when it comes to working with a bunch of stakeholders. And again, don't get me wrong, I am not bashing any types of bootcamps or the bootcamps that I was in, because a lot of them do provide weekly design critiques, and a lot of facilitators do the best that they can to role play the types of question product managers or engineers would ask, but like you can't really get the full picture of what they do and what that relationship is like without talking to one. I would not be a UX designer like I am today if it weren't for the skills and knowledge that I got from the bootcamp that I enrolled in. So in no ways, as usual, am I trying to discourage you. I'm just here to be truthful, help you understand what's about to come, and take advantage of this knowledge. Kind of like Morpheus in The Matrix, I'm taking this too far. I've officially taken this thing way too far. If you're interested in which bootcamp I ended up going with, along with the pros and cons in much more detail, you're gonna wanna check out my honest review here. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and I will see you next time.